Hi, everybody. Eve Harow, Rejuvenation on the Land of Israel Network. It is late on Thursday, October 31st, and I'm just finishing one of the most extraordinary weeks of my life, I think, with the Israel Bonds Women's Delegation. And in a few minutes, I'll pick up and tell you guys the stuff that I did this week. But before they get on the plane, I grabbed Michelle Klahr, who is involved with bonds, and who I wanted her to give you guys some background on what this organization is, because it is just a part of the fiber of the state of Israel. And a lot of people think, oh, maybe it was something that was done a long time ago. Yeah, I remember my grandparents bought Israel bonds for me. Not that it's still a living, breathing, and very active organization. So first of all, Michelle, who looks exhausted, this was a great week. I loved being with you 2 years ago, and it was great again.
Okay, first of all, Eve, we loved having you. You are literally the best. And the women had an amazing time. So thank you for all that you do. It was really a special week.
It was very, very special.
Okay, but a little history on Israel Bonds. It was founded in 1951. Ben-Gurion came to Madison Square Garden and launched Israel Bonds. And the reason he did that is because the country was starting out and it was absorbing all these immigrants from all over the world. And the country needed money for infrastructure, absorbing immigrants, everything, water supplies. And they didn't want to keep on having to go to the diaspora for a charity. So they came up with this idea that they would sell bonds and that Israel would pay back the money with interest. And since 1951, Israel has paid back, has never defaulted, and it has paid back every single penny with interest. And since 1951, we have raised over $43 billion for the state of Israel. And everything that we saw this week and all the places that we went to, Israel Bonds played a role in that. Israel Bonds helped to fund everything that we saw this week, and that's what makes it so special. It's also a way for the women in the diaspora to connect, to establish that bond with the state of Israel. It's so Israel knows that people support them, and that's important for so many different reasons. Number one, it's important to show the government that there are, Jews who care about Israel and support the country. It's important for Israel's bonds rating as a country that they see so many people are bond supporters. And it's important.
Why does there need to be a women's division? There's a lot of different organizations. Couples give, individuals give, men give, women give. You're specifically the head of the women's division. Why is it important that Israel Bonds has a special role that women play? This was a bus I got it this week, about 40 women, some who've been, have been on quite a few, some I know from 2 years ago, some who were new, all age ranges. Where is your role different in Israel Bonds and maybe in different organizations?
So Women's Division was started in 1954. It really started, Golda Meir was the first proponent of the Women's Division. And ever since that time, it's become even more important because women's financial power has increased. And Israel cares about the number of purchasers in the diaspora. So if there's a family, why should there just be one purchaser? They care about the amount, the connection, the bond between every single person. So why shouldn't women have their own voice and make their own investments in their own name and be able to help out the state in their own way? So it makes sense. And additionally, it's a great opportunity for people to network. Women who think the same way about Israel, all lovers of the country, and understand its importance to Jews around the world. So it's a great opportunity to network. Women have the financial power. Israel wants as many supporters as we're capable of. And it's just a great way it's a win-win.
So since this was a week that was a women's delegation, we focused on meeting women. There's a lot of talk about feminism and empowering women all over the place, and exactly what direction that takes is different depending on what society you're in. But what we saw here in Israel and the impact that women are making there were things that I learned here from the commander of the Northern Reconnaissance Unit, who I'm glad she's on our side. That's all I can say.
She was a very strong woman, and she had the most amazing thing to say. Some woman in the audience asked her, what do you need from us in the United States and Canada? What can we do for you? And she said, nothing. We feel your love. We know that you're out there supporting us, and that means everything to us. And that's what Israel Bonds is all about, showing your love for Israel in the way that you can.
There's so much in the news all the time, the usual negativity that, the Western Jewry is floating away from Israel, and there's all these differences. And of course, what's highlighted, and there are differences. They're two different countries living with very different realities. Israel is not Kansas, and we are surrounded by some of the worst people on the planet.
Yes.
And so, but now people come here and they understand that what holds us together is so much more than we have difference. And yes, there are differences. But to meet some of these women that we met with this week, the Bedouin woman who is making changes in her own society. I'll talk about that more in length when I let you go, because I know you have a plane to catch. Within her own society, there's so many different sectors in Israeli society, from ultra-Orthodox women to Bedouin women to young women to just so many who are trying to, sometimes it's their own sector in their society that's getting in their way, and that they have to make those changes. And they need support, and they need help, and they know they need, people out there that are not going to be critical. These changes don't take overnight. And just to know that there's a bunch of women out there who are saying, you go, girl, and we love you.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we met so many of them just today. We spoke with Yehudit Abrams, who just talked about reaching up to your potential and how to effectuate change. She kept on trying to challenge herself. She wasn't doing enough, and she pushed herself and pushed herself. This woman has a medical degree and an engineering degree and has worked in so many different fields.
She worked in NASA.
Right. She worked in NASA. She's a convert from Kansas, and she came here and she developed this amazing system of early detection of breast cancer that you can monitor at home. And she's just showing us the power of one person, how much that they could change the world. And Mayor Eliza Block from Beit Shemesh showed us that today. She said, I was very happy I was a teacher, and then I became a principal, and I was very happy doing that. But I saw that things in my town were not getting done. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take care of this myself. And she didn't have a lot of money behind her to go launch a campaign. So she went door to door, knocked on everybody's door, and got to know her. And we walked around the city with her for a half an hour. I think every single person, it was like Cheers, every single person knew her name. So if you put your mind to it, you can effectuate change. And we saw that with Deputy Mayor Flora Hassan today as well. She is really doing a lot of things, and not just for Jewish people. I mean, we met with Gal Lusky this week, who is pouring her heart out to help people from all over the world in all these war-torn countries.
She sneaks into Syria to do with a clown therapist to work with women who've been abused and raped and have no one to talk to because of the shame it'll bring on their own societies. So they managed to help these women who aren't Jewish, who aren't Israeli, who are enemies technically, and she risks her life to go in there. Yeah. And a lot of these women, what struck me also is that a lot of these women say their faith puts them through.
Right.
That they think there's a bigger story here than just their lives. And that's, I think, really important for a lot of us. That I'm not talking about organized religion specifically. I'm talking about faith, about feeling that God gave all of us a gift, a strength, and if you use it to make the world a better place, then it will enrich your lives and everybody's. And you know what's great, Michelle? And you saw this too. Most of these women don't realize how amazing they are. They're just doing what it is they're called to do.
So Yehudit Abrams is so modest, and so we had to beg her to speak to us. She doesn't really like speaking to people, but she doesn't think of herself as anything amazing. And just that one person is absolutely incredible. And how each of these women have made such an impact. And I think it's affected each and every person on this delegation to realize, what can I do to make a lasting impact? After I leave this world, what are people going to say? What am I leaving here? What are my footprints? And a very easy thing to do is just to buy Israel bonds and help Israel have the money to continue building up this beautiful country. And God forbid, God forbid, God forbid a million times, Israel ever needs us. We are there, and we have the database of people to mobilize quickly to raise the funds. Whereas if we didn't have this, they wouldn't be able to. It would take years to raise that type of funds through bonds if we weren't around. And that's the real thing. Also, God forbid, we're their safety network.
Right. The Black Book.
Right.
And I think that's especially pertinent in a world of BDS and of countries and of individuals who, and it's really anti-Semitism, but what are we going to do? It's the oldest hatred, but we're not going to be able to solve it, who are trying to push Israel as a pariah state and maybe cut Israel off at some point, and who knows? And the people who are involved with Israel bonds are really like you said, the safety net, the backup for the state. God forbid we should ever need it.
And also, we're apolitical, so it doesn't matter who's prime minister. I mean, not that anybody knows who is.
Oh, is there going to be a prime minister? We even meeting with Ayala Chaked this week. She wasn't able to tell us what exactly is happening.
Exactly. So I'm saying it like it doesn't matter who's prime minister. We all share a deep love of this country. My parents are Holocaust survivors, and all they cared about was Israel. I mean, this is all. It was in our from birth. It was Israel was the most important thing, and a Jewish education, and continuing on the traditions. And I just feel it, and I just love what I do. Because when you go to work every day and you so believe in what you do, there's nothing like it. And the truth is, I would love to live in Israel. I mean, this is the ultimate place, and Eve knows I've said this before. But if I can't live in Israel, at least let me do something for Israel. And it's just so fulfilling.
It's your shlichut, or in English, like your mission. And
Right.
You're an emissary for Israel until you get here. Also, Michelle and I have the same skirt, just to tell you what kind of great fashion sense she has. There's only one other person that I've ever seen who has that skirt that I got in Aspen because they lost my luggage when I had gone there to speak, and I had to buy something. So we're, sisters separated by the Atlantic Ocean, and one day you are going to make it here. But in the meantime, what you're doing is getting people involved, and I think the word that we're fishing for is legacy. That what you do in your lifetime is what's going to be remembered as your legacy. And what'd you do? Did you just talk, or did you actually do something and make sure that Israel continues to exist as a strong and proud state, not just for us, not just for the Jews, but for the world?
And also, in terms of countering BDS, we have this program. It's called Bonds to Universities. So you could, instead of just writing a check to university, you could donate a bond to them. And basically, it's taking BDS and making it and turning it on its head, because now this university that's the hotbed of anti-Semitism is holding an Israel bond. So it's it's complete win-win-win. So yeah. So we should all just do what we can to see this country continue to flourish and grow. And I don't know, it's funny. It's like I come here, every time I come here, it's like you get more and more nachas from seeing what's going on here and seeing all the different things. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just the most beautiful, special place.
God is the rational explanation for this, because there's no other one.
No.
He believes in his people and he wants us to succeed, but we've got to move it along with him.
Right.
We've got to be partners.
And we're all one people. Wherever we are, we're Jews, and we should all support each other and love each other. We don't have to always agree with each other, and we don't have to feel the same way. But when it comes to Israel and it comes to each other, we're all in it together. We're all brothers and sisters.
Are there lovers of Israel who are not Jewish who are also support bonds?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's not just for Jews. It's for anybody who loves Israel, and all the more, the better.
The God people versus the not from all. Okay, Michelle, time to get you home and back into your routine. But I'm going to miss you. When I do these missions, they're so intense and they're so involved. From early morning until late night, we're all together, mainly eating, but stopping and talking to people along the way. Yeah, and when you're with 50 women, right, you get to know a lot of the bathrooms along the way, and we need more. But it becomes a very intense. It feels like much more than a week, and very intense. And we learn so much, and we share so much. And women share their stories. Some women have been through a lot, through really a lot, and picked themselves up and persevered, and lost a husband, raised the kids alone, had other tragedies, got sick with cancer, pulled it out.
Right.
So I find it I hate the word empowering, but I'm going to have to use it here because I think it's misused a lot. But I just find that coming after a week with women like this, who are also powerful women because they're involved with this great organization, I just find myself very inspired as well. I hope I did a little bit of it this week.
You did a lot of it.
But I also take this back and feel like, wow, I belong to a gender that's really rocking it, and it makes me stronger for what I have to do, because we all have our ups and our downs, and we need that sisterly support too. Is just fantastic.
Okay, thank you so much, Eve. I love you.
It was my pleasure. I feel like I have 40 new best friends.
Josh Easton here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. Check out my show this week and hear about an amazing initiative called Adamah 613. This is your opportunity to own a farm here in the land of Israel. Imagine you have somebody looking over your land, planting crops on your land here in Israel. It's an amazing initiative. David Ziering is the initiator behind this unbelievable project, Adamah 613. Hear all about it on my show, Israel Uncensored, at the Land of Israel Network on thelandofisrael.com.
Hi, everybody. Eve Harow back on Rejuvenation. It is very late on Saturday night, November 3rd, 2019, the fourth day of Cheshvan, 5780. And now that you know what Israel Bonds is, I could fill in a little bit of what we did last week because the organization has access to a lot of people. And so for me, it was really a privilege also to be able to meet and be exposed to people in Israel that I probably couldn't have done on my own. And so I'm very grateful for that. We had a meeting with a woman named Gal Lusky, who runs an organization called Israel Flying Aid. Michelle and I talked about it briefly, where they go into enemy countries and treat people who are suffering from every kind of trauma you can possibly imagine. Not a simple thing to do from every level, also legal, and you can't even imagine. And she told us a bunch of the issues that she has to deal with. But we came out of there just in awe of this woman and of the dedication that she has. And it's also time away. She's got children. She's married. She has children. There's a price that her family pays as well. But she is just driven by the fact that there are people that are suffering in this part of the world that nobody is helping, least of all their own tribe, country, religion, whatever it is. And she feels that she has to go and do it. And then we went early one morning to the Air Force Base in Haifa, and we met with some of the kids in a program called Special in Uniform, which is in the IDF, the program to integrate kids with Down syndrome and other learning disabilities or things that would have kept them normally out of the Army, so that when kids at 16, 17 in Israel get a letter to get ready to be drafted, they get a letter saying that they're not going to be drafted. But many of them wanted to wear a uniform, and they want to feel it's a big part of Israeli society. And so they have a program like this, and a young man spoke to us who was born prematurely. He was a pound when he was born and clearly had all kinds of health difficulties his entire life, and he went completely blind when he was 15. But he'd always wanted to serve in the Army, and so he's serving in the spokesperson's office. And you don't have to see to be in the spokesperson's office. And it's just an incredible thing. The man who runs the program, he didn't give us all the details, but he himself, during the Lebanon War in 2006, was saved by somebody who had disabilities. And he decided to devote himself to these kids and to integrating them into the Army. Just so moving. And I was looking at these kids, and they're so happy and sweet and just so grateful that I thought to myself, maybe we in society have things wrong. Maybe these are the normal people, the people who are just happy and appreciative of everything. And those people in our society who are mean and angry and never seem satisfied, maybe those are the people that we need to treat as having disabilities. Maybe that's not the normal way to be. But this was just so inspiring to see these kids and to see what the country's doing for them. Because really, a country and a people is defined by how they treat those who can't help themselves. It's easy to deal with people who don't really have any issues or can manage. But it's what we do with people who can help themselves. Like one of our last stops, one of the last days, we were in Shaare Zedek Hospital, and we were hearing from the doctors who run the IVF unit. Not shockingly, Israel has the highest rate in the world, also because the government pays for a woman to have up to 2 children, as many IVF treatments as it takes. The cost is prohibitive in many countries. That's why people don't have children. And here in Israel, with the emphasis on family and on children, the doctor who came in and started to speak with us did not have a kippah on his head. He didn't look religious, and you guys all know how much I despise that terminology. But right away, he starts quoting from the Bible about the mitzvah, about the commandment to which we just read about in this week's portion, right? To be fruitful and multiply, and how Israel takes that very, very seriously. And without any regards to religion. Okay, an Arab woman in Israel is going to get the same treatments a Muslim woman as is a Jewish woman, as is a Christian woman, as is a Druze. Any citizen of Israel is eligible for that treatment, and how successful they are here. But I was walking around the hospital because we went to give gifts in some of the wards, and I was with some of the women. I pointed out, because it's in Hebrew, so they wouldn't have understood the safe places, the places in the hospital that are considered, that's where you should go if there's a bombing or some other kind of threat, away from windows and protected areas. And I've thought about this a lot when I've gone into hospitals over the years, that in the case of a war, the people in the hospital are a major liability. They take resources away from fighting whatever it is we're fighting. Yet it would never occur to anybody in Israel, and I hope no one in the West either, to not take care of people in a hospital, to whatever it is, get them to safe rooms, just keep them alive in any way possible, even at the risk of the staff's lives, because maybe they're exposed or whatever it is. But we're in a part of the world where the opposite is true, where their own people they play with and hide behind and put bombs under mosques and under hospitals and under the places in kindergartens where people are the most vulnerable if it's going to be attacked or going to get hurt. It's such a different way of thinking. And, we live in Israel, or maybe the West, but definitely here in Israel, and we take this for granted. We take it for granted that people help those who can't help themselves, that we have some kind of welfare for single moms or for people who have mental illness or whatever it is, some kind, maybe not enough and maybe not covering everybody. But there's an attempt, at least there's an attempt to take care of those who either have fallen on hard times or are never going to get out of hard times. And that's a Torah value. I don't know if we realize where that comes from, that whole idea of taking care of those that cannot take care of themselves. That's one of the many, many things that the Torah impacted the Western world to the point where the world doesn't even understand where it came from. But as with anything, we can't take it to the extreme. Sometimes Israel is faulted for doing things in a situation that puts its own people at risk. It happens all the time, but it can't happen to an extreme. And there are those who want to weaken Israel to the point that we wouldn't be able to win wars, or we would have to just totally collapse and really not be able to defend ourselves. And you see it everywhere. You see it also on different situations that have to do with war situations, where different reports had come out that Israel shouldn't have done this or shouldn't have done that. In situations that are just impossible to make that decision, but also when it comes to other ways that Israel is attacked, be it the BDS or other movements that are trying to attack Israel's viability and ability to just be a country like any other. But it is the mandate of any country to, first of all, protect its citizens. And we're just put in some of the most impossible situations. But within all that, we met people who just are thinking about tomorrow, who are not thinking about the nasty things and the threats around us. And not just in the Jewish world. We visited the northern Bedouin village of Zarzir. The Bedouins in the north are very different than the Bedouins in the south, who are causing a lot of trouble, refusing to live in recognized communities, mainly because they don't want to pay taxes. A lot of theft, a lot of violence, a lot of crime, taking over land that's not theirs at all. The northern Bedouin are not like that. They made a decision to integrate into Israel. They serve in the army and have paid a price for serving in the army. We went and paid respects at their memorial. They're going to school. They're going to the universities. They really want to integrate into Israel and trying to find the balance, which I think is a very healthy thing, between their own traditions. They live in this town. They live in a very tribal way. So there's 5 neighborhoods and each one is a different tribe. But we spoke to a woman who was really incredible, she got divorced because her husband wanted to bring in a second wife and she didn't agree. And according to Muslim law, that she was entitled to divorce him because of that. And she's making her way out there, as well as other women who are becoming educated and becoming principals and really getting out there and trying to make a difference. And it's a balance between, again, their own religion and their own traditions. It's the same in, for example, the ultra-Orthodox world in Israel. There are women who are already working. It's different in the ultra-Orthodox world, and we heard about this as well, because the women are already going out to work in the ultra-Orthodox world. Like 70 or 80% of them work if the husbands are learning Torah full-time. But now the goal is to get them to have higher paid jobs, not just to work, let's say, in a kindergarten, but to be able to work in a high-tech company and earn much more. So they're already... The goal is not to convince the women that they should go out to work, which is what you have more in the Arab sector, where a lot of the women still don't work. But the goal is to get them into better paying jobs. And so we visited Beit Shemesh with the new mayor. She's been there for a year, Aliza Bloch, who was not expected to win. And the changes that she is making in the town. And we went to a girls' school where also we met this principal, or ultra-Orthodox woman. She insisting that the kids learn all the core subjects. We walked into a math class, very moving dance class, which was taught by a dwarf, a beautiful young woman who was also told that she was never going to be able to succeed because of her height and her disability. And she wanted to be a teacher, and she found a way to be a teacher where not only did the kids listen to her, because the fear was that nobody was going to pay any attention to her if she was little, but she's teaching second and third graders dance. So she's their size. So they love her. You can see how enthused everyone is. She's dancing around with them. She doesn't have to intimidate them. She's like one of them, but more dynamic. And it was such a beautiful thing to see that there's a place for everybody in society. As long as you try not to be somebody else, you take who you are, you're honest about who you are, what your abilities are, what your abilities aren't. All right. So that's why I'm a tour guide. I'm not an ice skater, and definitely not a piano player. Too many people spend too much of their lives trying to be somebody else, and it's really sad. And one thing, and this is some of what we saw in Israel this week, is people who've taken their gifts. Many of them ascribe it to faith, to the supportive family. We went to the Olympic Village, and we spoke with, we met Moran Samuel, who was a top basketball player until at age 24 she had a spinal stroke and ended up in a wheelchair. So now she is a champion in the Paralympics, and she's a world champion in rowing, and she just pivoted. And not just, it took a lot of work, both physical and mental and emotional, to say, okay, I'm not going to be able to be what I wanted to be. I could be something else, and I could still be the best at that. And we spoke with Anke Spitzer, the widow of Andre Spitzer, who was murdered at the Munich Olympics, and she is tireless over the decades now in going to the Olympic Committee and trying to get them to institute a moment of silence. At the last Olympics, she was able to get a moment of silence in the Olympic Village, but she wants it at the opening ceremony, and she is not going to back down. She said it cannot be that this terrible travesty happens and it's not acknowledged. I mean, she feels that it's anti-Semitism, which a lot of that comes down to. A lot of the disparity between what we see here in Israel, what the country is like, and the image of the country. That's what's really shocking. Israel's not a perfect place. By far not a perfect place, but it's probably better than any other place. But it's held to standards that are impossible to hold to. And the image of Israel as just this awful place that's doing terrible things to everybody that's here is just so off from what the reality is. And it was so amazing to be able to spend a week in seeing the Israel that I know is out there and that I get to encounter, but even more deeply and with even more people. And now I have even more tools to be able to explain Israel to others. So we also met, as Michelle and I discussed, the commander of the Northern Reconnaissance Unit, who also just, lives and breathes the Army and what she's doing there to protect everybody up in the north, and with our threats from Lebanon that are not going away anytime soon. We went to the Paris Center for Innovation. That's just opening. It just opened a few months ago. The innovation part, the center's been open for a long time, and that was just outrageous. That was just to see innovation on an Israeli level, not particular to women or men, and what are the new things that are coming, what Israel already has invented, and what are things in the pipeline. Completely surreal. It's like entering, just somebody's like fantasies about what could be, except that it could be reality. So that was a great stop. We also went to a place called Hagal Shali in Bat Yam, a group of educators, guys in this case, who decided that there were too many kids at risk. There were too many kids who didn't feel good about themselves, who weren't getting the proper care at home, emotional care at home, and didn't have the self-confidence. And because they love surfing, so they decided to work with these kids through surfing and building their self-confidence, even if they'd never been on a board in their entire lives. And they were recognized by the education ministry with a lot of chutzpah, that's the only way of putting it, about how they got started. And now I think they have 3,000 kids in their program who come after school. Some of the kids want to develop, like they had these lights. The kids wanted to go surfing at night. And so they developed like these special lights, these balls that lit up in the water so that they could surf at night. And great things are going to come out of these kids. And it was just so heartwarming to see. It's unfortunate that there are kids at risk, but there are dysfunctional families. There are kids who don't feel good about themselves, either because there's no one there parenting them properly, or just because that's some people's personalities, or a combination of all of it. And then there's other people though who step in and make the difference. And we also had a lot of fun because we met the actress and the producer of Shtisel, which is a show that many of you might be familiar with about the ultra-Orthodox world. So we talked to the actress who plays Gitti. Her name is Netta Riskin. And talking about her character development, she knew nothing about the ultra-Orthodox world. A lot of people watching that show think that everybody there must be in that world. Not at all. They were taught Yiddish. They were taught all the different nuances of body language and behavior. And they did it brilliantly, to the point where people who do belong to the ultra-Orthodox world and who do watch the show, I guess, like not really telling anybody because they're not supposed to have televisions, but it seems like everybody has watched that show, how well it was done, even the little things that nobody else would notice, how you carry bags home from the supermarket and all kinds of things. So she was able to get into that character and really make her a strong character. And I don't really want to give anything away. There will probably be a third season. It wasn't really clear if that was definitely going to happen or not, because a lot of people were happy with how the second season ended, but they might do that anyhow. And then we just had a lot of fun. We went to Tzfat and visited the mikveh there for people with disabilities. I've been there many times. I'm actually going to be there next week. I've got a Momentum group coming back, and I'm going to be back in Tzfat again on I think on Thursday. And they had we went to a spice farm. They had a whole workshop there where they made shakshuka and salads and just really had a good time. It was a very special week. And the most special thing about it really was spending the week and getting to know 40 women who love Israel, who love the land, who love the Torah, everybody in their Jewish life in their own way, and all involved in belonging to an organization that, without judgment and without definition of who and what, just loves this country and the people that live in it and want to be out there to support this country. And that in itself was an incredibly heartwarming way of spending the week, because a lot of the time that I spend is doing Israel advocacy and in trying to fight the fight for Israel's legitimacy, and to be with people where I didn't have to do that because we were just learning all of it together. And instead of trying to convince, we were just able to strengthen each other and this country and our history and our future and our connection. For a couple of women, it was their first time in Israel. Wow, was it moving to be able to take them to the Kotel for the first time. And that was after we had been on the pilgrimage road. We got special permission to go on the staircase that's not yet open to the public, the staircase that led to the temple 2,000 years ago, and be able to stand there and just imagine the people in our past walking up the stairs, walking to a place where they could unite as a people with one God in one place. And that was lost a long time ago. The place, the building was lost, but the feeling hasn't been lost, and the unity hasn't been lost. And we have to focus on that instead of a lot of times on what divides us. Because really, we are an amazing people. And this country, it just beyond anything that could have happened normally. So for me, that's where Hashem fits in. on a national level and also on a personal level, when those of us, and I'm going to include myself and us, manage to get past ourselves and past the excuses that we can make. I didn't get this, I didn't get that, and really delve into whatever gifts we were given and be able to use them to, in some little way, change the world or inspire others. There's some who are doing it like Michelle was talking about, with Yehudit Abrams and developing something that maybe will just kill breast cancer forever instead of treating the disease, maybe preventing it. So there are some people that we met who are just going to change the world. But all of us can change the world in a little way if we devote ourselves to that, if we're good people, and if we realize that we're doing something like for the greater good and put ourselves aside, because really together we are so much greater than the sum of our parts. So it was really just wonderful spending the week with my ladies whom I miss, and I really do feel like I have a lot of new good friends because sharing a trip to Israel, which many of you listening know, is a life-changing experience and also creates definitely a bond. And I'm not trying to be funny here because this happened to be Israel Bonds, but does create a bond between the people who had those experiences together. Shared memories always do that. Judaism is totally about that. It is a religion of historical memory to a great degree. That's why we sit at Passover Seder, and that's why we recall a lot of the things that happened to us as a people, and that strengthens us and strengthens the connections between us. But even just a few days, meeting people, going to places, experiencing things, talking about them, not necessarily agreeing with what we saw or where it's going, but being able to talk about it and deal with it and see the freedom that Israel offers its people within a part of the world that is so not free, and within, I suppose, security restrictions that, like, we can't just go drive across a border, and a lot of things that we want to do, we can't do. So we have to be careful. But within that, we're just totally thriving and helping the world in any way we can. And it was really just a blessing to be able to see more of that this week. And that strengthened who I am. You see so many people volunteering and helping to fix a fractured world, not just here in Israel, but all over. So Israel should just go from strength to strength. If any of my ladies are listening, I miss you, and I can't wait to see you again. Maybe I'll come to your communities and bring a little piece of Israel and of what we did to those who weren't lucky enough to come. So you all know you can write to me, Eve@thelandofisrael.com. You can check my website, eveharow.com, for where I'm going to be. Coming in a month to the East Coast in February, kind of all over the place. I was just asked last week to come to London for a weekend in May where they're celebrating Israel. So, of course, I accepted, and I'm really excited and looking forward to that. So, thank God. I should just keep having the strength to do what I love and be with people that I care about. And educate and maybe even inspire a little bit. I hope you all get the chance to do that this week. Shavua Tov, Eve Harow. Thanks to Ben and to Tabitha and to everybody on the Land of Israel Network. Eve Harow Rejuvenation. Take care, everybody. Goodbye for now.